But now that you have a majority of chronically ill people and patients I know that suddenly have sensitivities, right? Can only eat certain things. How are you looking at and addressing it? 'Cause, what is the diversity of the meals you're providing for people that, suddenly can't eat this or corn or anything of this nature? Because it's becoming somewhat restrictive. I see when people like, I can't eat this list, I can't eat, a very short list. And then they try and go out, even when it's clean eating, suddenly don't have too many options.
That is, yeah, very difficult
Yeah,
problem. I think ultimately the main thing is like, look, I can't help 100% of people.
sure.
So I've got to look at kind of the 80-20 Pareto principle of like, okay, I don't even know if that's the right application of that term there, but, what's the majority of people that I can help and how do I design my menu around that? So one of the things that a lot of people resonate is we're 100% gluten free. So there's not a
Mhm.
single thing on our menu with gluten. Now, marketing that's a little different because a lot of people get kind of turned off sometimes because they think it's some kind of second rate gluten-free bakery or something like that. It's like, no, we've just devised this menu. There's really no need for gluten in our menu.
Mhm.
Our tortillas are corn tortillas for the tacos, right? And so I think things like that, like being 100% gluten-free, no seed oils. I'm trying to think. We have no nuts. We have no
Mm.
seafood as of right now. We've talked about maybe having a seafood option down the road, but I think when you look at that, I'd run into far more people who have a seafood allergy than only eat fish and don't eat,
Right.
red meat or chicken. So I'd rather offer red meat and chicken and not offer the fish. And so, I think the way our menus devise is we cover a good, I'd say like, 95% of the sensitive population out there as far as food allergies or sensitivities. I think the biggest one nowadays is the gluten.
Mm.
And that's hard because the easiest thing to go seed oil free on, the easiest restaurant concept are burger joints, right? Because you have
Yep.
fries and you've got burgers. It's the easiest, and I don't want to demean it, but it is the easiest or simplest restaurant to kind of start up. And well, guess what? What are you going to do about the buns, right? Those aren't gluten free. And it's a really big market of people who are either very, I don't know if allergic's the right word, but, celiac. My wife has
Mm.
celiac. So does her sister. They cannot have cross contamination. They get wrecked. And at the same time, there's a lot of people now discovering like, oh yeah, I've realized since I've cut back on, gluten, my bloating's gone down and, I've
Mhm.
lost weight and I feel healthier and yada, yada. So that market's growing. So that was a big consideration for us. And we've had a lot of people beg us for burritos. They're like, oh, can you release a burrito or a burger and bun? And I'm like, look, I think we have a broad enough menu to keep people, kind of almost entertained with what they're eating. Um, but keeping that sensitivity to where it's a, kind of a safe space for these folks to dine, it's worth the trade off. And so I think just having those simple ones, that's like 90% of the allergies is now we do get occasional dairy allergy, which, um, we can't guarantee there's no cross contamination. But you leave off the cheese, you leave off our chipotle crema, and they're usually good. So I don't know if that kind of answers how
No,
we're
it does. And
addressing.
I think, Graham, like the bigger point that people sometimes miss, it's not always the what of you eat. Of course, if you have a serious allergy and these things, you want to, of course, avoid, but it's the how, right? It's how is it being made? What is it cooked on? How is it clean, right? Those kind of things. And of course, your why, like why am I eating at what time? These sort of things without stressing your life. That's going to make such more of a bigger impact on your health than constantly focusing on the what is in it without understanding quality, how it's created, all these things. Would you agree?
I would agree to. I obviously think there are certain things that I'm like, gluten's an obvious one, and I think
Yeah.
that's what you're getting at is, I'm actually about to go to the restaurant, so I never eat gluten basically because I have to be gluten free with my wife and my oldest daughter. We think has it as celiac as well, so I'm basically celiac. But I honestly I do very well with high quality sourdough breads,
Mhm.
or high quality flour tortillas. And to an extent where sometimes, honestly, starting my morning off with a little bit of that, sometimes I feel better. It calms my digestion a little bit. So like
Yeah.
today, one of our some of our super fans from Orange County, they have an organic like home bakery she's starting. So she brought
Mm.
me an organic, unbleached. It's just organic wheat flour with pink Himalayan salt and water. And she brought me a fresh baked sourdough loaf. So when I go to the restaurant this morning, I'm gonna go have that as my breakfast, and I'm gonna enjoy it. But I agree. I think especially with gluten, that's the big one where you have to get organic because you can't have the I know Gary Brecka is beat this drum 1,000 times, but it's the folic acid
Yep.
and the other additives that they do for the enriched flours. Not to mention, I don't know if people know this. Maybe it's more. I was shocked when I heard this, but when they harvest wheat, right? Wheat is obviously conventional wheat sprayed with a ton of pesticides in the field, right?
Hmm.
That's already bad. But when they harvest the wheat and they put it in the trucks, they actually soak it in more pesticides because the pesticides keep it from sprouting mold. And so you're literally like submerging the final product. It's not like you're just, it's not you in the yard with your Roundup bottle spraying at the
Yeah.
base of the plant. Maybe it doesn't touch the head of the wheat that you actually eat. Okay, maybe that wouldn't be the end of the world. First off, they're spraying it with airplanes over the field, and then they're putting it in a truck and soaking it in the. I'm like, no wonder why it is making people gluten intolerant, right? They don't do
Yeah.
that in Italy. And that's why people, oh, I go to Italy, I eat pounds of pasta
The
and
the
pizza.
Italian paradox, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so, obviously, in an ideal world, if you could go real deep on this, right, you could get
Yeah.
organic einkorn wheat flour that you hand grind at home, and it's an ancient wheat variety, and that would be better. Um, but I think if you stick to organic and a long fermented sourdough, I think that's really shown the most amount of difference in how people react to where some I wouldn't even maybe not full celiac, but like very sensitive people to gluten can actually have sourdough as long as it's been fermented for like 3 days. Um, so I think that's really important. I think obviously like you know yeah like if you were gonna have I forget like even seed oils right like there's like what is it like expeller pressed
Mm.
sunflower oil where they don't they're not using the hexanes these dangerous chemicals to extract it. Sure, you're going to have as bad of a reaction to that as you would, canola oil or safflower or something like that. Maybe not. But I still think like those inherently, like we're not designed to consume large amounts of them. The
Right.
dose makes the poison, as you know. So, um, I think that's kind of my outlook. It's like, also, what are you doing with the 90% of your diet, right? If
Yes.
10% you go off your path, that's fine. But like what's the day in, day out? I kind of take the philosophy I'd rather play that the most safe. So I'd rather
Yeah.
have, very simple things that I don't have to question how much of this do I have to eat for it to be not healthy or if you keep that core, like I wake up every morning and make the same healthy breakfast every day, to where at least I know one of my 3 meals, or 2 meals or one meal nowadays is taken care of, then I think that's kind of a good philosophy,
Yeah.
maybe.
I feel like people just overcomplicate it, right? Simplicity is so key in health and just understanding, drinking out of glasses, you're doing things like that, right? It's the
Yeah, Mountain
little
Valley.
health actions that add up, but just keep it simple, right? Don't try and, talk yourself out of things or become overwhelmed and then stressed, as we know is a terrible response for the system to trying to stay healthy.